Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. So, let's talk about Roy Childs, who was an anarchist. This is installment number 2 in the video. We're going to start at 9 minutes and 24 seconds into the video, where he's going over a list of Ayn Rand's points about anarchism or against anarchism or something like that. So, point number 1 of Ayn Rand's is going to be the first thing here. Okay, I had it off for too long. It wants me to
shoot any strangers approaching his door, etc. This is a bad argument. One could just as easily...
Oh, that's how he responds. Alright, so let's read through it here. If a society provided no organized protection against force, it would compel every citizen to go about armed and turn his home into a fortress and to shoot any strangers approaching his door. If there wasn't an organized attitude about force, if every person had to decide how to use force individually, then every home would be a fortress, and anybody that came towards your house, you would shoot. That's what Ayn Rand says. He says, this is a bad argument. Now, I think that's a really good argument. I think that's what would happen. That is what we saw in the Dark Ages in Europe. Every home was a fortress. Not every home, was it? But every single town was a fortress. There was a wall around every single town. Now, if you were utterly poverty-stricken, you would live outside the city walls. But anyone with any wealth or importance at all lived inside the city walls. And when the town was attacked, all the peasants from outside would come in to the city walls for the siege. That was the Dark Ages, and it lasted for hundreds of years. So we know what that looks like. Ayn Rand is correct. That is what society would look like if there was not a broad agreement on the use of physical force. Now, do we need to skip forward? Now, this is, let me just say, I said on another video that we should push physical force and the use of physical force up out of our daily lives into the police. And then the police can also push physical force up out of their daily usage to the army. And even nations can agree not to use certain things. Now that doesn't mean that we give those weapons up and that we don't have them. All I'm saying is that you don't walk around with a 6-shooter on your hip nowadays. You know, in 1890 you'd be a damn fool to go walking around in southern Utah without a 6-shooter on your hip. But nowadays, if you have a gun on you, it's probably concealed, and you're one of about 5 or 10 or 15% or something like that carries a gun. Used to be you'd be a damn fool not to carry a gun, and I was trying to make this point about living in Alaska or living in a cabin. You'd be a damn fool not to carry a gun with you out there, and a big knife. So everybody who lives in the bush in Alaska has a big knife and a gun, or 2 or 3 or 5. Because you'd be a damn fool not to. Now, I personally in Connecticut don't have a gun. But that doesn't mean that it's not legal for everybody around me to own them. There are people all around that own them. In Utah, it was very easy to own them. You didn't have to register with your local Nazi police force or anything. So I had guns in Utah. I still have guns in Utah. Why haven't I gone to all the effort of registering them and going to the classes or whatever and paying the fees and bringing my guns to Connecticut since I've moved here? Why haven't I done that? I have not found the need in the last several years that those guns are necessary. Now, if I would have gotten mugged and robbed last week, then I would feel pretty stupid that I hadn't gone to all that effort, but it hasn't happened. So far, I've been lucky not to get mugged and robbed. But the point is, living in Utah 150 years ago and living in Connecticut today are two different levels of agreement on force. And there's 2 different levels of retribution that's available. Back then, retribution was slow, hard to come by. There was no phone to call the police. Now retribution is quick. Many police come quickly. So, it's our agreement on how we deal with physical force. Do we all agree to just carry a 6-shooter and solve our problems as we each see fit? Or do we all agree not to carry 6-shooters and to call the police when we have a problem? That's just the situation we find ourselves in today. Now, I'm not saying give up your guns and relinquish them. If you live in Alaska, have many guns. Fine. If you live in Utah today or Connecticut today, carry a gun. Good. When I go somewhere, I'm happy to know that there are people around me with guns in case there's a shooter. You know, I don't want to go to gun-free zones. Those places are dangerous. That's where the shooting incidents happen. Okay, we're driving this a little into the ground here, but I think it's an important point that we need to harp on for the anarchists, because they want us to, they don't want there to be a monopoly on physical force by the government. And I don't think that, in a strong sense, I don't think that there is. In a weak sense, there is, right? But in a strong sense, there's not a monopoly on physical force. You can still use physical force if somebody attacks you. You could stab them, you can punch them, you can... And a jury of your peers will set you free even if that person dies because you were attacked. Assuming it could be proven and so on. I'm sure that there's somebody out there who was being mugged and they killed their assailant and they're in prison for murder now. I'm sure that that's true. So it's not a guarantee of infallibility just because we have objective laws. But an objective law would allow you to use physical force to defend yourself. And if you preempt the laws that have been set by society about the use of physical force, then you might have to pay the price for that. Like if you take a tank and go and shoot your neighbor's house because his trees were shedding leaves into your pool, you're going to go to prison. And we don't care if you think that there should not be a monopoly on physical force, therefore you should be able to take a tank and destroy your neighbor's house. Your beliefs are irrelevant because we have laws that say that you would, in order to solve that problem, you would have to go make a report at the police station and you would have to file a complaint with the courthouse, and then the court would have to hear your complaint if they thought that it was something that they had time to do, if it rose to the level of their involvement. So these are complicated things, and one of the things that's interesting as we go through this anarchist miasma of nonsense is that we keep finding that they take concepts for granted, they steal concepts, they talk about a concept and define a concept, and then they ignore the context in which that concept was defined, and they start applying that concept to upper-level concepts above where that concept arose. For example, a monopoly that happens inside of a government. A monopoly is a type of activity that happens within a geographical region where force has been agreed upon to be used in a certain way. Then inside of that region there are two types of behavior called monopolies. One which is granted by the force power and the other which is won by merit. And those happen inside of a region that's dominated by a use of physical force that's monopolized by a certain gang, if you want to call it that, a group. This gang or this group changes regularly in elections. So it's not really a gang, is it? You'd be an anarchist if you called it a gang. Now, I'm not saying that Iran's government's any better than a gang, but they don't face regular, proper elections. And America's elections aren't so good anymore either. Let's put everything on electronic voting booths for security purposes. Yeah, that's working out well. I say we go back to a paper Australian ballot, where you write down or put a check mark. You know, when you push on those computer screens, you push up here and it lights up down here. You push the Republican guy and the Democrat thing lights up. Alright? But you can't do that on a paper ballot. No wonder they're trying to get rid of the paper ballot. Alright, why am I off on the fucking paper ballot here? Now he makes a false analogy of food production. He says, because Ayn Rand wants there to be a monopoly on force, a centralized monopoly on force, because force, the use of force is an essential in our lives. Therefore, we should have a monopoly on it. He says, what about food? Why shouldn't we have a monopoly on food? It's essential to our daily lives. Well, he's totally missing the point about force. Totally missing the point. We do need food, and therefore everybody should have the right to grow food or whatever. Totally irrelevant. Physical force is an issue. Because when you're told what to do or you will be punished or harmed or killed, you now have to consider that person's beliefs, actions, motives, and desires as primary. You no longer consider reality primary. You consider that person to be the arbiter of reality. They have power over you. So being threatened with physical force or someone using physical force against you stops you using your rational mind and puts you off on a tangential use. You use your mind to bend your reality to that person or that group's physical force demands on you. You know, and if they tell you you have to eat this particular type of food even though you know it's unhealthy, you don't have a choice. You have to eat the type of food that they are giving you. And so you're no longer able to use your rational mind to benefit yourself and to guide your life. If you're under a situation of physical force, the threat of physical force, you're being guided by them. That is why we make it illegal to use physical force. The anarchists are a little bit confused about this. They say that we have a monopoly on physical force and therefore we're the only ones that get to use it. It's just a confused way to look at it. Like I was saying earlier, you still have knives and guns and you can defend yourself. So it's not a full monopoly on physical force. And furthermore, now I've slightly lost my train of thought. You have a monopoly on physical force, but it's not true. Part of the monopoly is on a small scale, you can use physical force in your own life. And it's not a monopoly on physical force in the sense that we're actually using physical force. This is a key point here. We are preventing the use of physical force. The monopoly on physical force that Ayn Rand speaks of prevents the use of physical force. It preempts the use of physical force. It precludes the use of physical force. Physical force disappears. Like I said, physical force gets pushed up to the police level, and then the police don't even need it anymore, and they push it up even further. And physical force disappears from our daily life because we made it illegal. What does illegal mean? It means that if you break that law, we'll come with physical force and stop you. Now, how is this confusing? How is this confusing? We do not exercise a monopoly of physical force in the sense that we then run around using physical force on everybody. We exercise a monopoly on physical force in the sense that we stop people from using physical force. Now they want to just do away with that whole infrastructure and say, let's put physical force on the market. No, how about we make it illegal to use physical force? How about we make it illegal? Don't compete on the basis of it. Don't say, I can do a cheaper version of physical force than him. Just outlaw physical force. Well, how are we going to outlaw it? You're going to have a group of guys with guns, and if anybody breaks the law, the guys with guns are going to go over and arrest them, or beat them up, or take them to jail. That's how you're going to do it. You starting to see the picture here of what a society is? You starting to see how stupid anarchy is? I'm losing patience with it. We're on point number 1 of Ayn Rand's points here. All right, let me just harp on that for one more second, and then we'll start going forward. Is force centralized? Have we centralized force in America, in the United States of America? Is it centralized? No, everybody has guns and knives. And the jury, your peers will set you free. Force isn't centralized. Only emergency force is legal. That's our objective, the state of our laws in America today. Now, we're not a perfect objectivist society, but we're pretty damn good. Objectively, you can use force in emergencies. Someone pointed out the rooftop Koreans, which are brilliant. They're in Los Angeles during the riots. The police, of course, were scattering, and this Koreatown was being attacked from all sides by the Latino gangs. They were coming in to raid the Korean stores. And the police took the hell off. They got out of there when the shots were coming heavy. And the Koreans, because of the right to bear arms, because they had weapons, they stood there smoking their cigarettes and shooting. They stood in the streets of Los Angeles shooting. And the police took the hell off. Left. In modern day America, the police left the scene and let those people shoot as much as they liked at the people who were coming to attack them. So yes, we need weapons. No, there's no centralized monopoly on force. There's only the illegalization of force, such that if you use it, we will come with force and answer you. That's all there is. To call it monopoly on force, if that makes them uncomfortable, maybe we can figure out another way around it, because we all still have guns and we all still have knives. So is there a monopoly on force? And it's legal. It's actually legal to use force in an emergency to defend yourself. So, is there a monopoly on force? Is force centralized? No, not really. No, not really. Now, with all of these facts in place, can we please get some anarchists on our side from the other side? I don't know if I want them. They can't really think in principle. So whatever is objectively required for life, which would be use of physical force in emergencies, that would be a proper law, and that is what we find. Objectively, in emergencies, if you can't get the help of the monopoly police force people, then you should be able to defend yourself, to defend your life, to the extent of even killing somebody if they're trying to kill you. And there are people who have been set free who have done such things. Now, let's skip to 10 minutes and 20 seconds.
This contradicts your epistemological and ethical position. Man's mind, which means...
Ayn Rand's point number 2 here. The use of physical force, even its retaliatory use, cannot be left at the discretion of individual citizens. Now, he takes issue with this because every individual has to be the judge of their own mind. Every individual has to be the judge of their own rationality, and they have to be the final arbiter of what's true or false to them. Every single individual has to take that role. But they cannot choose to use physical force. It somehow stops there. They can choose what to think, what to know, what to believe, how to act. They just can't choose to use physical force on their own as they see fit. Now that's very confusing to him. I don't think it's that confusing. If we had a situation where everybody around us, all the people in village and in town, could use physical force as they saw fit, somebody would misbehave. And they would make other people frightened because there would be dead bodies showing up or something. And some of us would get together in a group and say, let's just write something on a piece of paper and stick it on the church door over there. Or let's make a little column made out of iron and inscribe some rules on it and put it in the middle of town. Or let's make an announcement at church this week. Or let's publish something in a local paper. Or let's distribute a pamphlet. And in this pamphlet or on this steel or on this announcement, we're going to say, anybody who does the following things will have to face an angry mob. Signed, angry mob. Okay, that's how it would start. And that would just build from there. And new complex layers would be built on, new rules would be built on. They would come up with different punishments too. If you killed somebody, they would kill you. If you stole something, they would just beat the hell out of you, maybe cut off your hand. Right? Different layers and different punishments, matched to the crime. So that's what would happen if you allowed every single individual to just use force in any way that they saw fit. Really soon, some mob or gang would form up to stop the really rabid, angry, terrible individuals from rampaging about the place. So Ayn Rand is right. You can't allow individuals to use physical force as they see fit. Except in emergencies. And even then you will be brought to account before a jury of your peers. Because we don't want to live in a society where people can go rampaging around without answering for it. Now, I think we can skip ahead a little bit. Yes, we skip to 13 minutes and 40 seconds now. Oh, let's do that because there's one more in between there. The retaliatory use of force requires objective rules of evidence to establish that a crime has been committed and to prove who committed it, as well as objective rules to define punishment and enforcement procedures. Now, that's a complicated sentence, and that refers to what I was just talking about, that we would make some level of rules, and then after that there would be some other layer of rules on top of that, and then we would have exceptions here and exceptions here. And this is a complex behavior called law. Now, let's talk about law for just a second here. Freedom is what Roy Childs wants. He wants the freedom to build your own government and compete with other people who are providing government services. He wants freedom. What is freedom? What does that mean? It means the freedom to act as you want. It means self-ownership. Right? Self-ownership. That's what freedom is, right? Freedom means that you can act and no one will stop you. Well, wait, why wouldn't they stop you? Because if they do try to stop you, a group of men with guns will come and stop them from stopping you and preserve your freedom. That's what freedom is. Freedom is a group of men with guns ready. Now, the Greeks had a way of describing this. They didn't have guns. So here's how they described it. The king of Persia once asked one of his courtiers, he said, "Who is set as despot over the Greeks? Who is their ruler?" And the courtier said, "Sire, the Greeks obey no man. The Greeks obey only the law." That is freedom, ladies and gentlemen. To obey no man, to obey only the law. The Greeks knew it. The anarchists are friggin' clueless. Now, I'm just so tempted to stop right there. Roy Childs is so annoying. Should we listen to him and let him prove his point for a second?
Rules, while a coercive government would. It seems obvious that man needs objective rules in every activity of his life, not merely in relation to the use of retaliation. But strange as it may seem, the free market is capable of providing such rules. You are, it seems to me, blithely assuming.
So we need these rules to interact. He says, well, the free market can provide it. Well, I think that I've gone over the fact that the free market is something that occurs inside of a geographical region where there's a group of men with guns standing at the ready to retaliate against anybody who decides to start using physical force. The monopoly on physical force doesn't mean that the government gets to use physical force. It means that nobody gets to use physical force. And the government answers anybody that starts the use of physical force. And you can answer for yourself in emergencies if the government's not close by. So, there he is stealing the concept of markets. Now, he accuses Ayn Rand in here of not giving the names of the opponents that she's speaking against, and of dismissing their arguments wholesale without properly addressing them. Ayn Rand addressed all of these arguments absolutely properly, saying that they are doing the stolen concept. She did not cop out on any of this. One thing that I'm happy about is that I was able to read Ayn Rand and read her comments on anarchy and not have her give me a list of names that I would then go tempted to read and get confused by, because she knew that the anarchists were a soup of nonsense. So why would she advertise for them? Of course she didn't advertise for them. She spoke out against the ideas that they espoused, And then she simply went on with her point. She did not advertise for the anarchists. She did not want people to know their names and go and look them up and read them. Of course not. We can read them now. I can read them now, knowing about them. It's fine. And Ayn Rand wasn't trying to black hole them or destroy them. She just chose not to advertise for them herself in her own papers and in her own works. And I'm glad she didn't, because then I would have been distracted. I would have said, why has she put the name of this person in there? It must be important, or it's something that I should go check out. Or she would have to explicitly say, here's his name, but don't go read his stuff because he's confused and you won't be helped by reading his stuff. And then I would say, should I believe her? And then I would want to go read that stuff that she said that I shouldn't go read. So she just left it out. And that's her prerogative. She didn't try to black hole it or destroy it. She just ignored it and chose not to advertise for the damn fools. So that's my defense of Ayn Rand, not mentioning them by name, not advertising for a bunch of confused idiots who can't think in principle and seem to be basically uneducated. Now, well, let's see what the next point here is.
Agencies would not have objective rules, etc., and this without proof. If you believe this to be the case, yet have no rational grounds for believing such, what epistemological practice have you smuggled into your consciousness? 4. All laws must be objective and objectively justifiable. Man must know clearly and in advance of taking an action what the law forbids them to do and why, what constitutes a crime, and what penalty they will incur if they commit it.
That's what I was talking about. We're preventing the use of force. A monopoly on force doesn't mean that one gang gets to go around using force. It means that nobody gets to use force, but if somebody starts using it, we retaliate. That's what it means. All laws must be objective and objectively justifiable. That's why I keep saying an objective attitude towards emergencies would be that you can use your gun or your knives in an emergency. Men must know clearly and in advance of taking action what the law forbids them to do and why. Okay, you can use your logic and your reason. Your mind is freed to act. It's freed to look at reality and try to decide what to do in reality. If you know in what state of affairs you're safe and in what state of affairs you're dangerous. But if you don't know in what state of affairs you are safe or dangerous, then your mind is never freed to act, to do its real job. If you live in East Germany and you never know which store clerk is part of the SS or part of the KGB or part of the listening people, you never know if your own husband or wife is a secret police informing on you, which a lot of that happened. After the files were opened, people, in the 1990s, all these secret files were opened, people could go look up their file, and they read through it, and they find out that their wife was informing on them for 20 years. Their wife was going to the police station and telling the police all about what her husband was saying at home. Okay? That kind of stuff was happening. Now, in that situation, your mind is crippled. Crippled. You feel like you have bricks stacked on your shoulders. Because the threat of physical force is very real, it's all around you, you don't know why it might come down on you, and you don't know when. And it destroyed those societies who acted like that, destroyed them. So you have to define what's illegal, why physical force might come down on you, under what circumstances, and objectively define it. And that would be a proper society. Of course, Roy Childs can't grasp any of that. He just wants to steal the concept of efficiency, economy, and freedom, which all occur underneath the auspices of an area where it's illegal to commit physical force. Those things occur in an area where physical force is illegal. He wants to use those concepts to distribute physical force. 13 minutes out of, and I'm half an hour in. Let's call it a video there. I might continue more. I don't know. If I keep watching the video, I've watched it all the way through several times. So this is not my first time through it. But if I keep watching it from here and discover more that I haven't already talked about, because the stuff's in my subconscious, it's coming out, then I might do a third installment on this letter. We'll see if I need to. I think I've covered most of the ground. Now, I'm going to keep doing stuff like this. I suspect expect it'll get better as I exercise my muscles in this way. I haven't been doing these videos, or I've been relaxing, and I've been driving luxury cars around. If you want me to do this stuff, go to Patreon and Patreonize me. Skip that cup of coffee tomorrow and send me that money this month. Every month, set up a Patreon pledge, because I need that job that I gave up on a monthly basis. And I'll go back and drive BMWs and Mercedeses if I can't get a little bit of income from doing this sort of nonsense. And this, as fun as it is, I do not know about these anarchists. I just don't know if they're smart enough to catch up. But I'm going to try.